This is a CJSR podcast.
Volunteer-powered,
Listener-supported,
campus and community
Radio.
podcast. Radio and podcast.
A big portion of baked goods are better before they are baked.
Hi, my name is Saveta Cartwright, and you're listening to That's Food. That's Food is a podcast from CJSR, Edmonton's campus and community radio station. Handmade with love by University of Alberta students, telling the backstory to food in Edmonton, one meal at a time. A couple of years ago, I had to go on a gluten-free diet. Over the last 2 years, I've had cravings for everything gluten and haven't had much luck finding a gluten-free version of it. One such item is a classic chocolate chip cookie. So, in this podcast, I will do just that. Find the ultimate gluten-free chocolate chip cookie Edmonton has to offer that will satisfy your cravings. I'll be testing cookies from Superstore, Connect, Rio Vita, and a homemade version. I've recruited a friend to help me test them against a regular cookie. As we test the cookies, try guessing where the cookie is from. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is AJ Dimas-Lehndorf. I'm an MBA candidate at the Alberta School of Business. That's where I met Saveta, conveniently. I have exactly no subject matter expertise in cookies, but have a lot of opinions about them anyway.
Awesome, and I am Saveta Cartwright. I am also an MBA student. AJ and I are classmates and friends.
Yeah. My friend and esteemed colleague, Saveta Cartwright.
Oh my. And together we're going to be eating loads of cookies, and we're going to be rating the cookies from best to worst. So let's get into it. Starting off, AJ, what do you consider a good chocolate chip cookie?
I am unsure whether this would be controversial, but I like a soft chocolate chip cookie, like one that is like chewy, like long after it is cooked or baked, I should say. I have this theory that a big portion of baked goods are better before they are baked. So the gooey cookie simulates that flavor of dough, you know?
Yes. I completely get what you're saying. My preferred cookie style is also soft baked. If possible, I like a crispy outer edge and really nice and soft on the inside. Sometimes though, I do opt for the hard baked cookies because I want to dunk them in milk and get that textural component as well. What about the content of chocolate chips? Do you like lots of chocolate chips? A good like half and half split of the cookie and the chocolate chips, or what's your preference?
I like a fair mix. I think I'd err on the fewer but larger chips.
Similar, actually. I don't like chocolate chip cookies that have a lot of chocolate because then that's just chocolate. Preference is actually slightly less chocolate chips so that I can actually enjoy the the cookie part of it. And then what about sweetness? Mine is, since the chocolate chips themselves are almost always pretty sweet, I prefer the cookie dough to be slightly less sweet so that the two balance out. And I'm really a mild sweetness type of a person.
I think I'd agree.
We're going to rate these cookies on sweetness, mouthfeel, chocolate and cookie pairing, and shape and presentation. The rating system is 1 is not cookie to 4 a very cookie, while 2 is kind of cookie and 3 is pretty cookie. And the cookie with the highest average rating shall win. Without further ado, let's dig into the cookies. The first cookie we have over here is, for the audiences, this is a blind taste test for AJ. AJ does not know what kind of cookie he will be eating. Yeah, so we'll go with the number. So the first cookie is cookie number 1. It is 4 inches in diameter, approximately half a centimeter thick,
Very
Even,
pancake-like in appearance.
yes, even thickness, as AJ said, very pancake-like, a very consistent spread of chocolate chips, small
Mhm.
chocolate chips, and perhaps, in my opinion, a few too many chocolate chips.
I would wager that also, having not bitten into it, because you can see there are a bunch that are like kind of peeking through the surface, but you can see beneath them like the little darker patches. Very densely chipped cookie.
Yes. And when I try to break this cookie, it is bendy. It's not breaking.
See, that's a good sign for me.
And if I try to pull it apart, I'm having to use a lot of strength to pull it apart. Oh my. That's not a cookie snap. I'm
Okay.
concerned.
So you were folding it. I was like, good sign. Now I'm folding mine, and the way it wrinkles in the middle does not give me very cookie vibes.
Right. Right. And it takes quite a bit of force to break it into smaller pieces.
Is this a cookie?
Yeah, I'm going in for the first bite.
Okay, I will also.
You need strong jaws for this. That is a very hard bite.
This cookie is dense in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's very hard to chew. Not in a good way. It's not even like a hard baked cookie.
It's like beef jerky.
Yeah, it's like cookie jerky. Yeah. What else? The sweetness level, actually, I really like the sweetness level. So,
I like the chocolate.
oh, the chocolate itself is good?
I don't think I much like the cookie itself, but the chocolate is good, and it kind of dominates the palate.
The next is mouthfeel.
I think this mouthfeel has like no redeeming qualities. Like I don't know what I would want to be like this.
Absolutely. It's very gummy. It's almost like if they put just a little bit more gum, it would be chewing gum.
Yeah, it tastes synthetic. Like there's plastic in this cookie.
The next is chocolate and cookie pairing.
I like the chocolate itself. Like I said, I don't really like the cookie so much.
The ratio of chocolate chips, so the chocolate chips are delicious. It has a good chocolate flavor. The cookie itself is atrocious. And this isn't a soft baked cookie, and it's not a hard baked cookie. I don't know what this
The
is.
leather baked cookie.
Yes, it's a leather baked cookie. And the final component is shape and presentation. For me, the shape is a bit too consistent for a cookie, which throws me off a little bit.
And the number of chips, like we said, there's a lot of them, but they're so evenly distributed. Yet it still doesn't look manufactured.
That's true.
But when like literally the first thing we said about this was it looks like a pancake. So if we're judging appearance based on cookie or not cookie, I'm going to give this a not cookie.
I agree. We called it a pancake. It looks more like a mini pancake than it does a cookie. So for cookie number 1, what is your overall score?
I'm giving it a not cookie. 1.
1 for AJ. And for myself, I am also giving this. Actually, I really like the sweetness of it. I will give it a 2. Kind of cookie. So average is 1.5. Moving on to cookie number 2. Oops.
These cookies are small, like a toonie and a half, I would say, in like visual mass from above.
Very uniform. These are hard-baked cookies. What else can we describe about this cookie? I like the color on the cookie. It looks like a cookie. I don't mind it.
It looks hard, but it does not look burnt or especially well done.
It has a nice dark golden bake on it.
Visible cracking.
Okay, let's get into the rating. So, sweetness. Let's take a bite. For a hard baked cookie, it's not bad. It has a nice bite to it. It's almost biscuity though, like not scones biscuits, but British biscuits. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say biscuits, AJ?
I have a concept for what you're talking about, but I don't know what it is.
Like peak freens. Have you ever had those peak freens box of? Oh darn.
I have not.
Okay. Okay. So the texture of this thing, when I take a bite, it's a good bite. It's really crunchy, void of any moisture, which is fine for a hard baked cookie, obviously. But once I continue chewing it for a little bit, it wants to disappear. It's almost too airy and doesn't have enough substance.
To what extent do you think that has something to do with its size? Okay, you've been taking like nibbles of them. I took one entire cookie, and my hopes for this were low because it appears so hard on the outside, but the middle bit is like, it's not soft, but it's not hard. The outside of the cookie gives you this vaguely satisfying little crunch if you're into crunchy cookies, but the middle is like not chewy but soft.
But not soft like a soft baked cookie.
No. Also, like you said, it's soft but not moist in any way.
Mm-hmm.
Devoid of moisture.
Mm-hmm. So this would make a really good dunking cookie. But as you take a bite and you chew it a few times, it starts melting away completely. So for me, it lacks the substance. And I could eat 10 of these and not realize that I've eaten 10 cookies. The size is really small.
And more, I think that I reckon these will be the most snackable of all the cookies. At least from what I can tell with the others. Certainly with cookie one. I wouldn't even want to complete one. But these, I would have multiple of these.
I would too. I wonder if it would satisfy my cookie craving though. When I crave a good chocolate chip cookie, is this the cookie that's going to do that for me?
Yeah, personally, I need the moisture and I need the softness that this just doesn't have. Even though I've just described it as soft several times, it's not the kind of soft I'm looking for.
So for sweetness, I would say this is ideal sweetness level for me.
For me, it's not nearly sweet enough. And also, like, that combined with the lack of moisture makes it feel like not bready, but like kind of toasty. Maybe that's that biscuity thing you were talking about.
Yes, it's toasty. Yes. When you have like when you toast your bread a few too many times and it becomes kind of crumbly almost. Kind of like that.
You know when you use the reheat function on the toaster and it warms it up some more, perhaps bakes it a little more, but mostly dries it out?
Yes.
These cookies were prepared in a reheating toaster.
Or it's almost like they bake these cookies and then they put them in a dehydrator.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that like it's consistent with, like, you know how in the appearance section I was saying that it appears manufactured? Mm-hmm. That aspect of it also tastes manufactured.
It does. I agree.
I would also like to say for the record that mere moments ago I was telling Saveta about my dream toaster.
AJ dreams about toasters. It's one of the few things I like about AJ. Okay, so though I don't think being manufactured is a bad thing in and of itself, I do think it lacks a little bit of, I don't know, sometimes I find manufactured foods or processed foods to be a bit lacking in the satisfaction part of it. And this is falling in that realm a little bit. It's not giving me that deep satisfaction of a cookie.
High snack, low satisfaction.
Absolutely.
Maybe like high snack, medium, low satisfaction. Like, it's not a dissatisfying cookie, but yeah.
Yeah. So for mouthfeel, for me personally, I like the crunch, but as I've said before, it wants to disappear on me after a couple of chews, and I'm not a fan of that. So I don't like that too much. How about you, AJ?
In terms of mouthfeel, this cookie exceeds all expectations. I was not expecting it to be a pleasant experience in my mouth, and that little bit of not softness made it for me. I wouldn't say made it in the like it's a 4, but made it better than I expected.
Okay, better than expectations, only because your expectations were lowered based on presentation and
Correct.
not what you actually want out of a cookie.
Correct.
Okay, very curious. Chocolate and cookie pairing. Even though in the beginning I said that the chocolate chip quantity is on the lower side, I do like the chocolate and cookie pairing. I think it goes well together. The cookie flavor is pretty nice. The chocolate brings in just the right amount of sweetness, but maybe it's not chocolatey enough. So it's in the middle for me.
I think they're paired well for each other in that they're both bland. So they're consistent with each other, but I don't like them.
That's a fair point. And finally, shape and presentation. The shape is almost too uniform for me. The presentation is almost too tidy, if that could be considered a valid point. And I want to see some more chocolate chips. Also, it's too small of a cookie. I mean, this is more like cookie chips. They're like mini cookies.
Cookie 2's appearance for me is not at all enticing.
Mm-hmm.
Like if this cookie was on a table, or if these cookies were on a table with several other snack foods, I don't think I'd take them unless all the other options are pretzels.
Okay, so what's your overall rating for this cookie?
I liked it better than cookie 1, but not enough to give it kind of cookie. So this is another 2 for me.
First one we rated not cookie at all.
Oh, okay. Just kidding. I give this kind of cookie.
I give this kind of cookie as well. So the average for this cookie between the two of us is 2, kind of cookie. When looking at cookie 3, it is of a grayer color than the rest of the cookies.
Mm-hmm. Like if these were animate cookies, this one would be dead, but like recently dead.
The shape looks nice. It's uniformly circular, yet it has some crack.
Yeah, this one is like very obviously homemade, or is convincingly homemade. It is, I'd say it's actually inconsistent. Okay, it's consistent in roundness, but kind of lumpy. But because the lumps are like pretty close to each other, it has a very UFO-like shape, at least the 2 I have. Flying saucer.
Yep, okay, I can see that. I don't see any chocolate chips on mine on the surface.
There are a couple that are like peeking through. So like I know they're there.
But if these were sold at a store beside other types of cookies, it would be hard to tell if these are chocolate chip cookies. Okay, let's bite into it. So that's a soft baked cookie. I wish everyone could see our faces right now. We have both screwed up our faces trying to understand what this cookie is.
I was initially smitten by the texture. Mm-hmm. Very, very, very soft. Like no noticeable. Like it is like a very firm liquid. So I was overwhelmed by this texture because it was a welcome change from the previous cookies. But then once I started dwelling on the flavor, I was like, I don't actually know what I'm experiencing. So it went from very excited to very confused.
For me, the first thing I noticed is the sweetness. I think the sweetness is bang on. It's not too sweet. It's not, the sweetness isn't too little. So it's perfect. The texture, it's soft. It's consistently soft across. It's quite dense even for a cookie. It falls apart really easily. despite being dense. The texture perplexes me a little bit. There's almost like these really tiny particulates in it. Is it a flour that they've used that hasn't been ground finely enough? I question. And what is this flavor? This flavor also perplexes me. I do see one chocolate chip, but I cannot classify this to be a chocolate chip cookie. This is...
I was going to say, these chocolate chips could be oats, for all I know.
Yeah, totally. Is this an oat cookie? It has an oaty taste, doesn't it?
It does. Pulling the cookie apart, there are no visible oats. Like, there are visible chocolate chips. Unless they're like toasted rolled oats. It should be like the worst cookie filling.
So actually, now that you mention oats, this does have an oatmeal type texture as well. Have you had oat cakes before?
I think I have. Couldn't tell you when or what they were like.
I used to get them at UNB at Headrest, and they're these really dense cakes, and it's made of oats, and it's got this like dense, almost not rubbery, but almost chalky or pasty texture. So if
pasty.
Yeah, pasty, that's it. So these cookies are kind of pasty, I find. Really dense. I bet they're super high in carbs, but not the sugar kind. I think they're really, I don't know actually. These cookies, okay. They would not satisfy my chocolate chip cookie craving.
They would satisfy my cookie craving, not chocolate chip cookie craving. You say that harder cookies dunk well in milk, but I reckon this one would go really well, personally.
I would partially agree with that. I think this would pair really well with milk, but judging by how easily it's falling apart, most of it will definitely fall into your milk.
You need a shallow basin of milk.
Absolutely. Or eat it with a spoon, which is curious. Okay, so for sweetness, I'm going to say the sweetness is good for me. Mouthfeel is questionable. It's got the strange oat cake density. It's got flours that weren't ground fine enough, in my opinion. Chocolate and cookie pairing, not enough chocolate. Shape and presentation. I'm okay with the shape. I think the shape is just fine, but the color is gray, so that's concerning. How about you, AJ?
I'm so sorry. The 4 categories again.
Sweetness, mouthfeel, chocolate and cookie pairing, and then shape and presentation.
I think the sweetness is fine. I think if I were a child, I'd find these cookies boring or not very cookie on our metrics. Mouthfeel, I quite like. I've mentioned that I like a soft cookie. I think it is just slightly too soft in that, like, when you take a bite, it doesn't feel like your teeth are going into anything. It's just like you're just pulling off masses of this entity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There was a slight crust around the edge, but not firm enough to really hold itself together. Chocolate and cookie pairing. What chocolate? Unclear whether there was chocolate in here. So doesn't perform well on that front. What do you give it overall?
I think overall for me is 2.5. It's better than the previous two that we've had, but it's really not like, I found the texture of it like too consistent. I think one of the beauties of chocolate chip cookies is that you have a textural difference between the chocolate and the cookie, and then also like the edges versus the center, and all of this is just too homogenous. And then it reminds me of oatcakes, and that just makes me miss oatcakes instead of enjoying this cookie. How about you?
I agree with 2.5. You know what? Actually, I'm going to change my mind. I'm giving this one a 2.
All right. So, shall we move on to the next one?
We shall.
What are your first impressions of this cookie?
I will say they're very inconsistent. Saveta has provided me 2 of cookie 4. And neither of them are uniform in shape. One of them has 3 very large chocolate, I'd say chunks, but they're kind of bricks. They're like rectangular prisms. And the other one has none. No chocolate apparent in the second example.
Oh no. The one that I have, I can just barely see a chocolate chunk peeking through. The chunks are pretty large. Agreed. Inconsistent shape, but I really like the overall look of the cookie. It's a little darker on the edges, becomes lighter in the middle. It's like, I want to say this is going to be crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. I really hope so.
I was going to say it looks enticing in that it's a very tall cookie without being very like very large, like from the top view. So that, like you were saying, suggests that it has like a firm enough crust so it holds its shape, but it's thick enough that like there has to be some softness in there. Otherwise, it would just be a rock.
Yeah, I'd say it's 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch thick, and it is 2 to 2.5 inches in diameter. And it's got slight ripples on its surface. So I almost want to say when this cookie was baked, it spread out in the oven. All right, shall we bite into it?
We shall.
So what is the sweetness rating on this guy?
Not particularly sweet. It's a cookie.
Mm-hmm.
Not a very sweet cookie. This is like in your realm of like cookie sweetness, I want to say.
Yeah, I would rate this a 4. It is perfect cookie sweetness for me, but not sweet enough for you.
I could go sweeter. Not as boring as the previous one.
Mm-hmm. How about mouthfeel?
Very soft, like almost excessively soft. Like everything we were talking about with the appearance, like selling it as a kind of balanced. Everything we said in the appearance about it offering like a balanced kind of texture, just like didn't manifest.
Okay. For me, the mouthfeel, it was actually a little cakey, I found.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, I think, what would make it a bit more cookie-esque? Maybe
Slight snap, you know?
Yeah, maybe if it had spread out a bit more, or if it was a little thinner, then we would get that difference that we were talking about. Difference in texture. Chocolate and cookie pairing.
Try another bite to verify.
For me, I feel like the chocolate was too few. There could be a few more pieces of chocolate per cookie.
Too much chocolate for me, I think. Because because those chunks are so big. But also, for context, it's been like 35 degrees on the day that we're recording this, and the chocolate is very soft. So it's like almost like it feels pre-melted. I'm not sure if that's fair to it, but something about it being like in almost liquid form makes it the chocolate the kind of the dominant sensation in a way that I would want slightly less of.
And what about shape and presentation?
It looked probably the most cookie-like of all of them. It was a very attractive cookie.
Yeah.
I don't even know if this cookie is that bad. It's just that the appearance set such high expectations.
Okay, so what is your final rating for this guy?
Okay, give it a I know I've been dunking on it this whole time, but I'd honestly give it a 3.
Oh, wow.
Pretty cookie.
I would also, considering that this is the first cookie, I feel that would satisfy my cookie cravings. And I really like the sweetness level of this. Because of that, I would give this a 3 as well, a pretty cookie. But it definitely has some room for improvement to get to very cookie.
I should say, because I do like it better than the previous cookie, so I can't give it a 2.5. I would probably give it a 2.75 if I could, because I realized that like my rating of 3 was based on my imagining of what it would be like if it was cold, and I don't think that's really fair to the other cookies.
So your revised score is 2.75. So what are your first impressions of the final cookie?
Final cookie appears the most well done of all the cookies. Not as in that like the best, but as in the most thoroughly baked.
Oh, okay. So it's probably a hard cookie. In fact, it is a hard baked cookie.
Yeah. Has the cracks that the previous or the aforementioned hard baked cookie had.
Yeah. I think the shape is pretty consistent, which is nice.
It has a very cookie-like shape. It's not a perfect circle. Decent assortment of chocolate bits. I say chocolate bits because they're not uniform in shape. Like they're not those like pointy kind of chocolate chips. It just there are pieces of chocolate.
It's darker than all of the cookies that we've had so far.
It is, but it's like a warm kind of dark. Golden delicious. Okay, let's bite into it. Exceeds expectations like the other hard-baked cookie. Kind of hoping it to be slightly softer because it's decently, or it's meaningfully thicker than the other hard-baked cookie. But yes, similar, where it's like kind of a dry, crunchy on the outside and then a dry, soft on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of chocolate in this one, or at least all the chocolate bits are very close to each other.
Is that too much chocolate for you?
I think it might be.
Okay. How's the sweetness of this guy?
This is closer to my ideal level of sweetness, I'd say. Noticeably sweeter than the ones you preferred.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just slightly too sweet, but I think it's close to just right.
Okay. And then how about mouthfeel?
Mouthfeel, I think same complaints as the other hard-baked cookie. Like very dry, kind of almost dusty, you know, and how like the first kind of crunch, it just kind of disintegrates right away, you know?
Yeah. Okay. And then chocolate and cookie pairing?
Just a little too much chocolate for my tastes, I think. The chocolate itself is good, but it's a lot in certain bites.
Shape and presentation?
Definitely a cookie.
What's your overall rating for this guy?
Gonna give it another 2.75. I think with milk, this would be a 3, but without milk, it's still a 2.75 for me.
Okay.
Because it's just so dry.
Yeah, it is. And I guess that is that's the curiosity of cookies. When you want to dunk cookies into milk, you want a nice, dry, hard-baked cookie. So it absorbs that milk and it turns into this new delicious thing. But if you want to eat a cookie by itself, then it has different requirements and criteria. And for me personally, I would prefer a soft baked cookie for enjoying it on its own, and I would prefer a hard baked cookie for dunking it in milk. They both have their own place in my world.
I'd agree. I think if I were to, let's say these were all recipes, I would elect to do one of the soft ones because I think that would like bring me the most joy over time, assuming I'm not eating them all in one sitting.
Would you like me to reveal where these cookies are from and if they're gluten-free or not.
I want to know.
Time for the big reveal. Okay, so cookie number 1 is gluten-free, and it was purchased from Rio Vida, which is a gluten-free bakery in Northwest or West Edmonton.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say yeah, go ahead.
Not at all what I expected.
So the first cookie was from Rio Vida. The second cookie, also gluten-free, from Kinnick, which is also a gluten-free bakery, and they have lots of different gluten-free and also dairy-free baked goods and other items.
I thought cookie 2 was Chips Ahoy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That says something to the quality of a gluten-free cookie.
Yeah.
That's really good. Cookie, and the average rating for cookie number 2 was 2, which is kind of cookie. For cookie number 1 from Rio Vida, the average rating was 1.5, which lives between not cookie and kind of cookie. Cookie number 3. Do you think it was gluten-free or do you think it was regular?
Do you have an example that I could look at so I can remember what cookie 3 was?
Cookie 3 was gray.
Oh. I wouldn't think it's a gluten-free cookie if I wasn't told that it was. Probably because of its softness. Because like the first 2 cookies didn't quite get the like cookie texture, and they're gluten-free.
Okay. So cookie number 3 is gluten-free, and it is a bake-at-home cookie. So the brand is Sweet Lawrence. You buy it, it's available at Superstore, and it's already portioned into individual cookies. You put it on the cookie sheet and bake it. Cookie number 4, what do you think? Was it gluten-free or was it regular?
I would say this is not gluten-free. This was like among the most cookie here.
Okay. So cookie number 4 is gluten-free, and it is a homemade cookie. And the recipe is developed by yours truly.
Impressive.
Thank you. And then the final cookie, do you think that was gluten-free or was it regular?
I'm inclined to say regular because it was just such a regular cookie, like in general. But maybe given how firm it was, I think I'll go with gluten-free.
So that was a regular cookie.
Oh.
Yeah, that was the only regular cookie in all of this, and that is PC brand Decadent Chocolate Chunk Cookie.
Wow.
Before I went gluten-free, that was my favorite cookie.
Really?
And also, that is the highest voted cookie on Instagram. I put a poll up on Instagram asking people what their favorite cookie brand is, and most people voted for PC brand Decadent Chocolate Chip Cookie or Chocolate Chunk Cookie. Awesome. Thank you so much for agreeing to join me on this podcast and being my esteemed guest, offering up your unfounded opinions on this subject of cookies.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for supplying the cookies and for this platform to share my unfounded opinions.
Anytime. That's what we're all here for. Unfounded opinion. The winner of the Cookie Showdown was a homemade version, but I think Kinnick's box cookies are a suitable replacement for Chips Ahoy, and Sweet Lawrence comes close to satisfying the soft bake option. If you're looking for the recipe for the homemade cookie, you can head over to That's Food CJSR on Instagram. Ever wonder what gluten is? It's a protein found in grains such as wheat, rye, barley, and other grains. There are, however, many grains that do not have gluten, such as rice, corn, and quinoa. It is what makes dough stretchy and bouncy. Gluten is the Latin word for glue, and not to be confused with glutinous. Today's episode was produced by me, Saveta Cartwright, with the help from the That's Food team. Thank you to AJ for being the taste tester. Our music is by Doug Hoyer. You can find all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. and on our website that'sfood.transistor.fm. You can contact us at that'sfood@cjsr.com. We are That's Food CJSR on Facebook and Instagram. That's Food is produced at CJSR in Edmonton on Treaty 6 territory. But is it food?
That's food.
That's food.
No, I messed it up.
Sorry, I didn't.
Again, yeah, I'm not counting down. I'm not counting it down.
Wait,
Too
we're not
much.
counting?